Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another story of how Christ worked in Asia. Christ in Asia. By the way, without further ado, I'm going to tell you guys the story that we're going to talk about today. The story comes from Korea. I think some of you have heard this story before because I think it's well circulated on the internet. This is a story of a saint that was born over 200 years ago. We're not going to talk about how Christianity first came to Korea, but we're going to talk about one person. He was the first native born Korean Catholic priest and is now referred as the patron saint of Korea. Now, it all began in 1836 when French missionaries arrived in Korea. They came ready to introduce Christianity, but instead they were shocked. Why? Because when they arrived, they saw thousands of Koreans were already practicing Catholics. Among these faithful believers, the missionaries met a young man. They saw something special with him, so they helped guide him towards the priesthood. That young man was Andrew Kim Taegon. Now, during his lifetime and after that, Kim Taegon continues to inspire so many with his unwavering faith. According to the University of Notre Dame, the first Christians in Korea may have been baptized by invading Japanese soldiers in the late 1500s. It wasn't much, but it planted the seed, and Christian faith slowly began to grow after that. Then, in 1777, several Christian texts made their way into Korea. These writings, brought from China, caught the attention of the Korean scholars, and some of them converted to the Christian faith simply through reading and reflection. No one preached to them, but they converted to the Christian faith because of these texts. More than a decade later, when missionary priest finally entered Korea, he made a remarkable discovery that over 4,000 people, 4,000 Koreans, were already practicing Christians, yet none of them had ever seen a priest before. They were living without access to the sacraments or formal church guidance. Even without these, many Koreans had chosen to embrace Jesus Christ wholeheartedly. It was driven by hope and unshakable hunger for truth. It was this extraordinary faith that shaped the early church in Korea, the same faith that would later animate the life and martyrdom of Korea's first Catholic priest and saint, Andrew Kim Taegon. Now, Kim Taegon was born in Chungcheong province in 1821. He grew up in a family of devout Catholic converts, though there's little recorded about his childhood. He was deeply immersed in his love for Christ. At just 15 years old, he was baptized. Despite living in a time where the Joseon kingdom at the time regarded Christianity as a heresy and a dangerous Western threat to Confucianism, his father, grandfather, uncles, they were also executed because of their faith. Yet Kim Taegon pressed on seeking deeper understanding and commitment to Christian teachings. During this intense persecution in the Joseon Kingdom, Kim Taegon was sent over 1,000 miles away to study at a seminary in Macau, China. After years of study and serving as an interpreter, in 1844 in Shanghai, China, at the young age of just 25, Andrew Kim Taegon was ordained a priest by Bishop Pharaoh, making him Korea's very first native-born Catholic priest. Now here's a fascinating fact. In the Philippines, there's actually a shrine dedicated to Kim Taegon. He stayed at the Dominican-run Hacienda de Lolomboy during his seminary years in the late 1830s and early 1840s, helping with interpretation and preparing for his priesthood. Bishop Pharaoh would become the very first bishop appointed in Korea. Now, burning with zeal, Andrew Kim Taegon returned to Korea with Bishop Pharaoh, ready to bring the gospel to his people. He began ministering joyfully in Chungcheong province until a new and very dangerous mission came to him, which is to smuggle French missionaries into Seoul using China's fishing boats as covered transportation. Now, this was an incredibly risky mission. Massacres at the time were still happening, especially targeting French missionaries. But Andrew, fully aware of the danger, decided to take the risk anyway, and he did the mission. Unfortunately, the secret mission was discovered. by the soldiers of the Joseon kingdom. The Joseon dynasty launched a brutal crackdown, forcing Christians into hiding. But Andrew's love for Christ made him bold. However, he was arrested in 1846, dragged to prison in Seoul, and brutally tortured. On September 16th, he was found guilty of treason, accused of leading a so-called heretical cult. That day, Andrew Kim Taegon was taken to the banks of the Han River, and there he was beheaded. But before he was beheaded, he said something that's very, very meaningful. As he stood before the executioner's blade, he reportedly called out to the crowd gathered for his death, saying, "This is my last hour of life. Listen to me attentively. If I have held communication with foreigners, it has been for my religion and my God. It is for Him that I die. My immortal life is on the point of beginning. Become Christian if you wish to be happy after death, because God has eternal chastisements in store for those who have refused to know Him." Even after his martyrdom, Andrew's life continued to leave a deep impact, especially on Bishop Farrell. Before the bishop passed away due to exhaustion in February 3rd, 1853, he made one final request: to be buried alongside Andrew Kim Taegon. His dying wish, which he wrote on a letter, was so touching. He said, "You will never know how sad I was to lose this young native priest. I've loved him as a father loves his son. It is a consolation for me to think of his eternal happiness." Kim Taegon's faith didn't die with him. It became a powerful inspiration for generations to come. As time passed, Christianity finally found acceptance in Korea, and Andrew Kim's unwavering devotion laid the foundation. Then on May 6, 1984, during his historic trip to Korea, Pope John Paul II canonized Saint Andrew Kim Taegon together with 102 other Korean martyrs. Their shared feast day is now celebrated every September 20th. And just recently, in September 2023, Saint Andrew Kim's legacy reached a global milestone. A permanent statue of him was installed in St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican. I do realize that I live such a comfortable life. The fact that I can talk about Christ like this in front of the camera compared to what had happened. They spoke about Christ knowing full well that you're gonna get killed. I don't have that kind of experience. Looking at his life, I realize how we never know what God has in store for us. I'm pretty sure he never would have guessed that he would become a very well-known saint from Korea. He didn't try to be remembered. He tried his best to glorify God, to serve the people, to spread the gospel. And God did the rest. That's something that I learned from his story, is just try our best to love God and serve the people, to glorify God, to spread the gospel. If it happens, it happens. If God wants us to be remembered hundreds of years from now, it will happen. That's it for today's video, and I really hope that you've learned something from this. It inspires you to be a better Christian, I guess. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to support this ministry by giving a like, subscribe, share. Turn on the notification bell, I guess. Okay, then I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. God bless you.